All right. Okay. So can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. All right, sounds good. We'll get going. So this is the class, why our hormones are keeping us miserable. And thank you for being here. I'm going to set this up for a transition slideshow so I can go like that. All right. There we go. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And who am I? My name is Cindy Richard, and I am a certified holistic health and nutrition coach and a food professional. I live in New Brunswick with my husband, and when chronic illness started to really affect my life, I started looking into more preventative and natural to feel better. So now, after school, I teach people all over how to make lifelong lifestyle changes by living a holistic lifestyle that helps us to feel happy, healthy, and confident. And I really do have a newfound passion to empower people to take charge and learn how to take control of their health by learning natural, holistic solutions for achieving optimal health goals. So this is my story, and it all has to do, so I don't know if you can see that. I see that's our face, my face gets in the way. Okay, so I was a 70s child and was raised with all kinds of goodies and processed foods, and you know, it was the new convenient thing, and parents were working, both parents were working now, and convenience really ruled the household. And so I never really was a great eater. I hated vegetables. I was a terrible eater as a kid. And around the age of 14, I started to have chronic symptoms, massive pain, massive bleeding. So I started very early seeing doctors that, you know, you don't start seeing until you're 18 or thinking about having babies, but in and out of doctors' offices and put on all different kinds of hormones to stop me from bleeding and to stop me bleeding and putting me on birth control pills. And I was in a lot of pain and I didn't know what was happening to me. And so finally, the pills, the hormones actually kind of helped what was happening to me. And until I got married to my first husband and was trying to have children, I went off the pills, and pain was excruciating. And finally started going back to doctors again, and was diagnosed at the age of 25 with endometriosis. And that went on. So I ended up having a few procedures. I dealt for the last 20 years with infertility, and throughout that, massive depression and anxiety. And with the procedures came a little bit of relief every time, but I was never able to have children. And the symptoms did return with a vengeance after a while, because what happens with endometriosis is it's actually a growth outside the uterine wall of endometrial lining, and it's like a weed. And so whenever they take it out of you, they never really get it all, because it's sitting up against your organs and your reproductive organs, and so they get as much as they can. But actually, hormones, estrogen, make these scar tissue grow back, and so it always returned. And so finally, just about 5 years ago, I was, again, it returned with a vengeance. And so I went to see another doctor. And after time, you know, doctors retire. You end up starting all over again. That's how it feels. And this time, after an exploratory surgery, again, I was found with stage 4. And I actually went to try to get a hysterectomy. And I actually had organ attachment. They didn't know where my organs started and ended, so they wouldn't touch me. They wouldn't do anything for me at that point. So there were no solutions for me, except for, of course, hormones, which, you know, I had learned through my life and through school that was no help to me. And then, of course, pain meds and narcotics, opioids, that kind of stuff, which I never had any interest in, because in my family, I've had friends and family that have just really ruined their lives because of pain. And so I was really totally fed up at this point. I had been going through this for about 20 years. and it causes a lot of symptoms and a lot of pain, and that was really hard. So at that point, I really decided to try to make a change and find out what else I could do to help myself. And then it didn't end there. So it actually gets better. So at that point, I had started going to school, and we had a terrible winter that year. And come spring, it was a really warm spring. We had had some roof damage with some storms. We live at the ocean, so it gets pretty windy here. Excuse me. And all of a sudden, I started with acute symptoms of really awful rashes and eczema that were never ending, and they kept spreading. And then I started with headaches and migraines, and then food allergies. It would seem as though I would eat something and those eczema rashes would just start on fire and spread even more. And then I started with real fatigue. I just didn't feel okay. I didn't feel good, and was even having joint pain. I thought I was starting with arthritis. I had carpal tunnel. I had plantar fasciitis in my feet. My hips were bothering me. I really thought I was going crazy. I had just barely turned 40 years old. And of course, I started seeing doctors again, and they would give me prescription creams for my rashes, but they never really helped me. And then finally, a light bulb went off, and we had been renovating this house that we were in. It was an old family home. It was built in 1913. And I finally started asking to take down some walls, and we found black mold in our walls. And so in the meanwhile, I had been seeing doctors and had gone for some testing, and he actually found some thyroid antibodies that were, I had an issue with my thyroid hormone. And he basically told me that I had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is hypothyroidism, and it's autoimmunity. And I tried to explain to him what was happening between my endometriosis and the mold, that we had found the mold, and he didn't want to listen to me at all. And basically he told me that, this was a thyroid problem. It was very common for women. There was nothing that I could do about it, and that I could take medication for the rest of my life and I would be fine. And he wouldn't even listen to me. So I was, again, extremely frustrated, feeling as though just doctors weren't listening to me or giving me any answers or even trying to help, it didn't seem. So I fired him. We abandoned our home, which was devastating, and I found attentive medical care. I found a new doctor who was willing to work with me. I saw a naturopath who found a whole team of doctors that would help me, conventional doctors that would listen. And then I changed my life. I continued going to school. I completely changed my lifestyle. I started living a holistic lifestyle and started treating myself better, and I finished school. And then guess what? I got better. So after 2 years of consistent and committed change, I am now 98% symptom-free. I have no eczema. I have actually been cleared by my endocrinologist that I do not have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And I am also now free of my endometriosis pain, which is just absolutely amazing to me, because I have found better hormone balance, and I have reduced inflammation in my body. And I will never be a skinny person. I have never been a tiny, skinny little person. But I always worked out, and I always thought I was healthy, and I was just so wrong about that. But when it came to weight, I just always struggled. I always struggled with like an extra 15 to 30 to 40 pounds. It really depended on how hard I was working at it. And I felt like I had to work at it so hard. And I always felt like a stuffed sausage. And so that finally released from me. Again, I'll never be tiny, but I feel great in my skin. And so that's amazing as well. And I no longer have these anxious and nasty feelings like I used to have. And so that's who I am. And now I have to tell you who I am not. And so this is my disclaimer, and it's pretty long. But basically what it says is that I am not a licensed practitioner, physician, dietitian, nurse, or medical professional, and that this class is for informational purposes only. And if you're gaining information for your medical issues, that you should always consult with your doctor. And this is my responsibility to tell you this. This is for, I am not here to diagnose or treat disease. All right, so let's get going. So what is a hormone? And according to Wikipedia, a hormone is any member, I see it's behind there, but I forget what it says, class of signaling molecules produced by glands in multicellular organisms that are transported by the circulatory system to target distant organs to regulate physiology and behavior. And that just makes it even more confusing than before we started, if you ask me. So in layman's terms, hormones are used to communicate between our organs and tissues for physiological regulation and behavioral activities. And that includes digestion, metabolism, respiration, tissue function, sensory perception, sleep, excretion, lactation, stress, growth and development, movement, reproduction, and mood. So practically everything that matters. So the endocrine system is where our hormones are produced. And again, I can't see my notes, but basically hormones they're sent to the tissues, and then they tell the tissues what to do. And so if they're not in balance, they really affect pretty much all of our functions, as you saw in the list before. And so the heavy hitters are leptin, which is the hormone that says to our body that we're full. And then there's ghrelin, which I think it's funny that it's spelled that way, like ghrelin, because it's the hunger hormone or the hangry hormone. Melatonin is our sleep hormone. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and that controls our fight or flight response. Serotonin is our feel-good or happy hormone. And then there's insulin, and insulin is the regulator of our blood sugar levels. And then there's estrogen, which is like my least favorite hormone, but it's one of 3 sex hormones, including progesterone and testosterone. They're the reproduction hormones and growth and development. And then there's thyroid, and the thyroid is basically the boss or the master of all hormones, and it helps control our metabolism. So we'll start with ghrelin. And so ghrelin is a hormone that acts as a chemical, and it tells our brain when we're hungry. And so when it's balanced, it's regulated by leptin. And so leptin is another hormone that tells us that we're full. So ghrelin is involved in the regulation of our appetite, when to stop burning calories, and when to store fat. And then ghrelin decreases when we sleep. And then leptin is the balance. So if you were to picture a teeter-totter, leptin and ghrelin balance each other out. They go up and down. So this is a hormone that acts as a chemical that tells our brain when we're full. So it regulates the hormone ghrelin, the hunger hormone. And if we overeat a lot or we carry extra weight, we can actually become resistant to leptin. So when we eat and we're full, and leptin is supposed to tell us that we're full, when we overeat or we carry a lot of extra weight, our body ignores leptin. It just doesn't listen. And so it's involved in the regulation of appetite, metabolism, calorie burning, and it increases when we sleep. So obviously when we sleep, we wouldn't be eating. But when we stay up late, that means that our ghrelin stays up late too. And then there's melatonin, which is another hormone that a lot of people are familiar with because it's so involved with sleep. So it's our sleep hormone. It's also known as the darkness hormone, and it regulates our natural and internal daily clock, which is also called a circadian rhythm. So light is an important regulator of melatonin. So as you can see in the graph, There's cortisol and melatonin. I don't know if you can see it because it's kind of cut off, but cortisol is black and melatonin is red. So melatonin is at its highest when it's dark, and then when the light comes, melatonin decreases because it's time to wake up, and then cortisol takes over. And in a normal balance, cortisol would rise during the day. When you get home at the end of the day, it lowers when the moon comes up, when the sun goes down and it becomes dark. Your melatonin levels come up, and it gets your body ready to be sleepy. And so that's how it's supposed to work. But then overexposure to light during biological night reduces natural release. So anybody who works at night or stays up late in front of a computer or a television, or happens to have a night shift and they're under bright lights, they're going to kind of mess up their melatonin release. And melatonin release can be reduced by too much cortisol. So we'll talk a little bit more about that here. So cortisol is our body's stress hormone. And as you saw, it's higher during the day, and it competes with melatonin. And it's the bully of melatonin. So again, a balance up and down. But cortisol is stronger. So if there's cortisol, it's going to affect melatonin release. And so what happens with cortisol is there's good stress and there's bad stress. So as we saw, when the sun comes up and we get up for the day and we need to do our thing and we have deadlines and we have a job and we have to get the kids to school and we have to go, that's good stress. That's what cortisol is meant for. And then good stress is also when, there's a bear coming and we have to run and we have this boost of adrenaline and we have to move. Well, this helps us to move. So cortisol is definitely related to stress. But again, there's good stress and bad stress. So the bad stress would be, too much work, a toxic relationship, working too much, staying up late, having toxic relationships is huge. And then just worrying all the time, and anxiety and stress, and the way we live today. And what's happening is our body doesn't know the difference between whether we're running from a bear or whether we're in a bad job or a toxic relationship. So our cortisol levels stay high. And for us, we don't feel really any differently. It just becomes a new normal to us. But to our body, cortisol is winning. And so it's affecting our sleep. And when it gets out of whack like that, it can create these huge energy spikes and these really crazy energy roller coasters throughout the day, highs and lows and crashes. And sometimes that's when we notice that we have cravings for caffeine, coffee, sugar, or even at the end of the day when everything's over, we crave alcohol because we can't shut ourselves down. We want to relax, and our bodies just aren't letting us do that. And so too much cortisol, chronic high levels of cortisol, can lead to many chronic symptoms and crazy inflammation. And so again, I think it's cut off a little bit, but effects of excess cortisol to the body, there's hypertension in there, there's depression back there, migraine headaches, tunnel vision, acid reflux disease. It affects your stomach acids. It can cause hostility, hunger, basically cravings, arthritis, and a decreased immune system, and decreased metabolism, which is nothing any of us ever like. It's hard enough. Okay, and so next is serotonin, and serotonin is the happy hormone. And so this hormone acts like a neurotransmitter in our brains, and it directly affects mood, appetite, and social behavior, sleep, memory, sexual desire, and function. So as you can see, these hormones, hormones are everything. They just control everything when it comes to symptomology. And so low serotonin levels are associated with depression and anxiety. In fact, antidepressants such as SSRI medication, and examples of that would be Paxil, and it begins with a P, and I forget now, but they're meant to boost serotonin levels. That's that's what those medications are. That's what the goal of those medications are. But the problem with that now that studies are starting to show is that the body actually becomes resistant to the medication. And so it's not really helping people the way that they would hope. And then there's estrogen, the female sex hormone that interacts with serotonin. So that's another hormone imbalance issue. 90%, so this is huge too. So 90% of serotonin is actually produced in our digestive tract, in our gut, our intestines. And so if we have bad intestinal flora, or we have leaky gut or inflammation, then we're not producing enough serotonin, and it's affecting our mood and could even be going as far as major depression and anxiety. And I know that this was an issue for me for a very long time. And so you can see here, serotonin deficiency causes so many mental symptoms and physical symptoms: anxiousness, worry, panic, phobias, you name it, sleep cycles, gastrointestinal distress, and again, the lovely carbohydrate cravings. It seems like our hormones are carb addicts. At least I know I am. All right, oh, speaking of carbohydrates, so insulin is another hormone that is produced in our pancreas in order to regulate our blood sugar in our blood. So insulin has two jobs, and it either does one of the two jobs. So it either converts glucose, which is sugar, into energy for our muscles and our organs, or it stores it as adipose tissue, which is fat. So when we eat, our body releases, it tells our pancreas to release insulin, and the insulin goes into our blood and basically takes over and says, okay, she's doing a workout right now, and we're going to send all the sugar to her muscles, and we're going to burn it off. But when I decide not to work out, or I'm not doing anything, or I'm eating too much sugar, then the insulin's like, nope, you know what? The organs don't need any today. We're going to send it to the fat cells. And then what also happens is when we are chronically high, when our blood sugar levels are chronically high, it causes our body to become resistant to insulin. So as it's sitting there, regulating in the bloodstream, telling it where to go, there's so much sugar coming through that it's just kind of ignored. The body doesn't even listen to it anymore. And so the pancreas can actually become overworked, and it stops efficient production of insulin. And so that's where insulin resistance comes in. And as you can see, insulin has such direct effects on so many things. So high insulin can actually, so these hormones affect men too, not just us women. We just deal with it a lot more because we have the lovely estrogen. But too high of insulin in men can cause estrogen to rise. That's when you see men, get man boobs and whatnot. Also, all of these hormones are processed through our liver. So anytime there's a development of excess hormones in our body, our liver has to deal with it. So we're definitely overstressing. And so as far as insulin goes, a lifestyle high in saturated fats, because you always hear, fats make you fat, and that's just, it's so not true, but saturated fats are not good for you at all. And processed foods, which is sugar, and then sugars in general contribute to insulin resistance. And insulin resistance, as we know, is the #1 contributor of type 2 diabetes. Also, it contributes to heart disease, weight gain, hormonal imbalances, and lowers immune function. Also, it causes chronic inflammation, and it can contribute to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So in my nutrition schooling, I remember reading one of the case studies, and it was a guy who was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver. And the doctor was convinced that he was an alcoholic. And this man and his family were so adamant that he was not a drinker. However, he was a sugarholic. I mean, this guy was very overweight. He was diabetic, and he had cirrhosis. And so that's a perfect example of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So it happens. And then the other very scary thing about insulin resistance is that studies are now starting to show that insulin resistance of the brain is a direct cause of Alzheimer's disease. And so in the holistic nutrition world, we actually refer to Alzheimer's disease as type 3 diabetes. So it's actually extremely scary. And so now on to estrogen, my least favorite hormone. I sound like I'm shivering because I am. It's kind of cold in here. So estrogen is the body's reproductive and growth hormone. We women are very familiar with estrogen. It's in charge of growth and development of breast tissue. It helps regulate our menstrual cycles. It supports growth of fetus and baby. It controls our cholesterol. And it is the body's natural mood stabilizer. Go figure. Well, it kind of makes sense to us when you think about it. And it's also necessary for the production of serotonin. So as you can see in the photo that I have here, so effects of estrogen to the brain, helps to maintain body temperature, it helps against memory loss, it affects with the heart and liver, regulates production of cholesterol, decreases the buildup of plaque in the coronary arteries, so directly connected with atherosclerosis, which is probably another reason why doctors really hate the idea of giving women hysterectomies. And I heard this spiel when I wanted it done for myself, that it so greatly affects a woman's body and the future of her health. So as you can see, this is why it really affects some of our major functions and organs. And so it's, oh, my least favorite over here. Okay, so estrogen balance is crucial when it comes to us women. And so for myself personally with the endometriosis, that's a sign of estrogen dominance, which is high estrogen. And so as you can see over here, some of the extremes are stroke and blood clots. And then go figure, they want to treat it with birth control pills, which also is a higher chance of stroke and blood clots. But, and it's anti-thyroid. It causes PMS and anxiety. Fibroids, polycystic ovarian disease, ovarian cysts, endometriosis, gallbladder disease, so many things associated, and major pain, organ attachment, you name it. There's so many fun things that go with estrogen dominance. And then there's low estrogen, which comes into play a lot with women when they're perimenopausal, which I will start to be soon if I'm not already. Age-wise, I'm already there. And menopause and postmenopausal women is low estrogen. And again, you deal with some of the same issues, stroke, possible dementia, depression. It directly affects cardiovascular disease, as we had talked about in the last slide. And then hot flashes, choline deficiency, and amenorrhea, which is the stopping of your menstrual cycle. So women who are younger than menopause, who are not having periods, and it's not due to, massive weight loss, but they're just having issues with their periods and missing periods, can be a sign of low estrogen. And so what affects estrogen balance? Well, again, processed foods, sugar and refined carbohydrates, cow's milk. So there are over 60 different hormones in our milk that we drink, our conventional milk. Gluten is very often it affects estrogen balance. Alcohol, definitely. Smoking, conventional meats, which again are just stuffed with hormones. And then there's environmental toxins, and then our personal care products, which are full of hormone disruptors. And then again, the lovely chronic stress. Because as we know, cortisol affects all of the rest of our hormones as well. And so now we're here at the thyroid. So the thyroid is the body's master regulator. And as you can see in the picture, it affects all of our organs. It affects so much, in our body, from our liver to our brain, lungs, uterus, GI tract. It regulates our metabolism in every cell of our body, and it plays a role in our normal sleep functions. It also affects our thought patterns. So when it's not functioning properly, it can affect every system in the body. Also, estrogen dominance can lead to low thyroid function, which was probably true in my case. And chronic inflammation can cause thyroid autoimmunity, which was absolutely true in my case. As the doctor tried to tell me, I had Hashimoto's thyroid disease, which was actually just my body really kind of freaking out. So what affects proper thyroid function? Again, gut health and inflammation are crucial to thyroid function. Gluten is such a culprit to thyroid function. Stress again, chronic infections, so overuse of antibiotics or prescription medications. Artificial sweeteners are really terrible for thyroid function. So if you're a Diet Coke lover, or if you use anything such as Splenda or aspartame, which I think is illegal now, I hope it is, but Equal, that type of stuff, really, really bad for the thyroid. Again, alcohol and nicotine. Also, some things that aren't mentioned about the thyroid, it's so underdiagnosed, and it also can cause arthritis symptoms, rheumatoid arthritis symptoms. And people just don't realize they're having thyroid issues. As you can see, hormone balance is crucial. Each hormone affects the body in a different way, but they really all work together. So when one is off, it's kind of like now the Christmas season, right? When one light goes out, they all go out, and that's kind of what happens with our hormones. When one's out of balance, they're kind of all out of balance. And I really kind of was a true story when it came to learning all about it. I always have to learn everything the hard way. And so the reality of it is all disease begins in the gut. And that is actually a famous quote by Hippocrates himself. And so there's a trifecta when it comes to our hormones. And it's all related to our gut health. So gut health directly affects inflammation and hormone balance. And they all work together. Again, when one light goes out, they all go out. But it really, truly all starts with our gut health. So what do I do? What do you do? So you heal the gut. And what happens is with our gut, we're all at some level of gut malfunction or dysfunction, however you want to call it. So all of the toxins and the stress and the food and the drugs and the prescription medications and you name it, anything that goes on our skin, everything we breathe, eat, and put on our skin is absorbed into our system, and it affects our digestive system. And so what happens over time is they start to wear a lining into our gut lining, okay? And our gut lining is there to protect us from all of these toxins. But when the gut becomes permeable, and you can kind of see in this picture, so they're supposed to be sealed together, as you can see on the left, nice and bonded. And then what happens is these holes start to form and the gut becomes permeable. And all of these toxins that we're taking in, whether it's through our skin or whether we're eating them or even stress, starts to affect us. And all of those things start to fall through our gut lining and into our bloodstream. And so that's what was happening to me when my immune system was kind of freaking out. So you can start to have all kinds of symptoms, and it throws off, it starts to affect inflammation all through your body, and it starts to affect your adrenal glands and your endocrine system, and then your hormones. And so the entire system is off, because we know that the endocrine system and the hormones are what help our bodies to function properly. And so you can end up with food intolerances and then immune system issues, which was true in my case, and then autoimmunity, which was also true in my case. So anyone who's dealing with arthritis symptoms or eczema or anything like that, and PCOS and polycystic ovarian disease or cysts, massive cramping, migraines. There's so many symptoms that are related to this cycle. And blood sugar balance is a huge one as well. And so it really does start in the gut, and that is where that's where you need to concentrate your attention really on when it comes to feeling better. Because then you reduce inflammation, and then in turn you can balance your hormones. So does all of this information kind of make you feel like this? Like, why don't doctors tell me any of this? So this has been my life. I've always wondered what is wrong with me? I'm so tired of asking the questions. Well, what is the cause of this? Why is this happening to me? And hearing, oh, well, it's common. It's common with women. It's common. I can't even, if I had $10 for every time I heard it's common and it's normal, I'd probably have quite a bit of money in my account. But so how can we heal the gut and balance hormones, and what can we do to feel better? Well, I can help. So I do want to let you guys know about a new course that I have started, and it will let you learn how to reboot your hormones, and it can be the most powerful thing that you can do for yourself to regain your health. And hormones are such intricate and sneaky little things, and I'm going to reveal all their secrets in my upcoming 6-week coaching program. So if you're interested in this, I'd be happy to tell you more about it. There's more information on my website as well. But hormone balance is truly the key to deep and restful sleep, peace and self-awareness, reducing chronic inflammation and reducing chronic symptoms, releasing stubborn, unwanted belly fat or, hip and bum fat. That was my big thing. And it helps with sex drive and anti-aging. They really, truly are the key to all of those things. So if you would want me to, I can help you cut through the overwhelm to start living a happy, healthy, and exciting life that's full of abundant energy and vitality. And this 6-week hormonal reboot program includes 6 live online meetings with me. So it would be in this format for 6 weeks. Very informative meetings that'll guide you through and help you be accountable, gain knowledge, and know what actions that you need to do each week to make changes happen, and what you can do to map out your week to meet your expectations and progress. You'll also receive my Whole Foods Guide that's full of tons of educational and informational links for you to learn even more about food and the body. You'll also receive all 6 weekly PowerPoint presentations that are full of information and how we can balance our hormones naturally, and also a private Facebook group called Happy, Healthy, and Holistic to share experiences with the group and be part of a supportive and understanding community. And so this is what you'll learn in the 6 weeks. So week 1 is hormones, nutrition, and the gut, and how it all comes together. Week 2 is safe movement, body awareness for mind and body balance, and then reducing toxic load, elimination, and detox, and how to eliminate our hormones and how we need to detox estrogen. Insulin 4, insulin resistance and blood sugar and what it all means. Week 5 is stress and cortisol and sleep. So that's a big one. And then, of course, thyroid and metabolism. And we'll talk a lot about thyroid disease and how it's so underdiagnosed today, how to find doctors that will work with you and listen to you. And all of these other weeks, there's so much more information about gut health and how we can help ourselves feel better. So I believe that every woman has a right to feel happy and healthy, and I'm 100% committed to your health and success. These classes will be held on Thursdays starting January 11th. So it's January 11th, February 15th, and they're also available by recording if you need to use the class. So the time of the class would be from 7 to 9 p.m., and that's Atlantic. So that would be 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And you can attend right on your computer, iPad, or cell phone. And so the investment into your health for you would be $295 if you register before January 6th and $345 after that. And I think that is a really cheap price to get your health back. And I just want to say that I truly am committed to helping people feel better. I know that I was miserable, miserable for years. And just to feel the way that I feel now, I can't even explain to you the passion that I have now to try to help others to feel better. And that is why I went to school for this. And I'm really excited about this program. I put my heart and soul in this. And I truly believe that anybody can feel better. If I can feel better after everything that I've been through, I think it's possible for anyone. So I hope you enjoyed this. There's more information about the class. There was the 6 weeks and the titles of the weeks there, but if you go to my website at www.thehippiekitchen.com and you look through my programs, you will see that each week has detailed information about what we're going to discuss and go over in each class each week. And also, if you have any other information that you need from me or you have questions, you can just email me at thehippiekitchen@gmail.com. So I really hope you enjoyed the class. I want to thank you for being here and allowing me to share this information with you. Woo, perfect timing. I don't know who this is. I'm at my parents' house, so I'm going to shut it off. There. But I do. that was quite an ending. But thank you so much for being with me. I'm actually going to shut off my share now. And if Beth, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. So everybody, thanks so much for joining me. And that's the end of the class. Again, if you want any more information, definitely head over to my website. And I really hope to see you again. If you have any other interest, I also do one-on-one coaching. And again, if you have any questions, definitely just message me. Let me know. Contact me on my Facebook page. And I hope you enjoy my class. So I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good job, Cindy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.